liquidity. Those are tactics. They're not outcomes for us. They're not long-term objectives. Our mission is to connect the world's professionals, make them more productive and successful. You mentioned 75 million members earlier. We think by some estimates there's as many as 500 million professionals in the world. So it's very early days for us, as we want to connect them all and ultimately provide economic opportunity to all of the professionals in the world. That's the ultimate end game of the vision. And so an IPO event would potentially be one tactic on the way to making that happen, but that's not the ultimate objective.
Okay. Whisper is on the order of run rate $200 million a year.
Who's whispering that?
Maybe just myself. So, let's assume we're creating rumors right now. But so I mean, let's assume 300 next year if you're going strong.
Wait, we're just starting with the whisper this year.
Well, you're growing quickly. No, but let's go back to the gist of the question is you could be valued at anywhere from if it's 3 times revenue on a slow growing company, anywhere from 300 million, 400 million to 2 billion, 3 billion, depending on how an investment banker, depending on how the market sees you. Are you valued on revenue, on a future business model that would be found, or because you're the only alternative to Facebook as a platform, social networking company, and therefore you have a huge value premium, right? So if Facebook's getting up to 25, 30 billion in terms of its value, then it takes you to a whole new level. Can you talk just a little bit about how you see the value of LinkedIn? Maybe you don't have to comment on the revenue numbers, but just what is the value of LinkedIn?
Sure. From a more qualitative perspective, I'll leave valuations to the folks ultimately investors. That's how a market gets made. But from looking at it through the eyes of our members, the 75 million and growing, I think there's primarily 3 value propositions. The first is the ability to build your professional identity, your professional brand, if you will. By virtue of creating a profile and then having that profile search engine optimized, you're going to show up near the top of search engine results, especially if you're maintaining a certain freshness to that profile. And the ability to carve out a piece of digital real estate in this day and age and essentially present to the world your experience, your skills, and ultimately what you want to achieve is a pretty powerful dynamic, and that creates opportunities. So that's one. The second is the ability to build and maintain and manage your network of professionals, colleagues, business contacts. I think historically when people have thought about professional networking, they envision the guy at the conference with like the chiclet white teeth, handing out business cards as fast as he can. And today it's very different. Professional networking is essentially how business gets done. You are relying on the people within your professional network for the information and the knowledge you need to be effective at what you do. For warm prospecting, certainly for recruiting, for closing all kinds of different deals. Essentially, people who are relying on their network today are at a competitive advantage when compared to someone who's not. And so I think that's also a critical part of the value prop. And the third element is really the sharing of information, knowledge, and data that enable you to be more effective at the role you're already in. And in this day and age, people are sharing so much more than they've ever done previously. There's been a huge shift in behavior, and one of our primary objectives is to extract as much relevancy from the information and knowledge flowing through LinkedIn as possible. You've heard the expression, trying to find a signal from the noise. At LinkedIn, we're looking for the signal from the stream.
Great. Just want to remind the audience, two microphones here. If you have questions, we'd love to solicit your questions. You've been very quiet all day. Love to ask who would love to ask Jeff a question? Come on up and ask him a question. First, okay, we actually already have a question. Come on.
Yes. Hi, I'm Peter Sisson from Line 2. So LinkedIn has not really published an API to create sort of a vibrant opportunity for people to create apps within the LinkedIn platform to reach that audience. Facebook obviously has done that. Are there any plans to do something like that?
Yeah, actually, we have published a number of APIs, both to enable third parties to establish applications on LinkedIn.com, and conversely to enable third-party publishers and developers to develop functionality on their own websites. An example that we recently launched on LinkedIn.com was an app introduced by a company called JD Supra which deals with legal information and knowledge. And that's become a pretty successful product for them, facilitating the exchange of knowledge between lawyers. It's now much easier to do on LinkedIn as a result of that. There's a series of other examples there as well. Off of LinkedIn.com, one of the best examples of leveraging our APIs is Microsoft Outlook. So when you receive an email from somebody, you can actually see their status updates within LinkedIn. If you're not already connected with them, we give you just a one-button ability to connect with that person. So those are just a couple of examples.
Let's talk about, oh, we got another question. Why not? Since you're asking questions, we're going to go to questions.
Hi, Jeff. Jed Ulaska from socialmedia.biz. I will bet you that like 99% of LinkedIn users update, well, they upload their profile and forget about it, right? So when you say that we should be keeping our profiles fresh, other than like sucking in RSS feeds, what do you have in mind?
Good question.
Thankfully, less than 99% allow the profiles to be static. The profiles are updated at a much more accelerated rate than that. And it's critical that people update their profiles, not just when they're looking for jobs. I think sometimes people look at LinkedIn as a mechanism to find or fill a job. And while that's clearly become a killer app for us, 62% of the Fortune 100 are now licensing our enterprise solution for recruiting. While that's a key part of what we do, the vast majority of behavior on LinkedIn is related to professionals in their day-to-day. Ultimately, for me, for example, LinkedIn's become a professional dashboard. I'm starting there every morning. That's how I figure out what my contacts are doing, my colleagues are doing. That's how I'm tapping business intelligence, competitive intelligence. Opportunities are accruing to me by virtue of the fact my profile is complete. And when people are searching for me or somebody like me, they're going to find me near the top of their favorite search engine's results. And the more people are updating their profiles, the more likely opportunities are going to accrue to them. And ultimately, that's the business that we're in. We connect talent with opportunity at massive scale in ways that were never possible because of the infrastructure that we can leverage and because of this massive shift in behavior that's taken place where people are now very willing to establish a profile and an identity, very willing to build and manage their network, and more willing than ever before to share information and knowledge.
JD asked a good question in that I think most of us can relate that you sign up to LinkedIn and we all use it, we all got the account, but we're not as active as we are on Facebook or some other sites, but there's this pleasant surprise that happens when we actually do try and use it for something more than just updating our career path, right? Looking for a job. I mean, it's an amazing service, or looking to hire somebody, or mailing our contact list with questions, and there's all these other services that you can use. The premium version, I'm actually using that to access people when I need to. It's an amazingly useful service, but I think you have to sell yourself more somehow, sell these services more. Is that something you're grappling with, or do you not see it that way in terms of actually telling people that, wow, this is actually useful for something, more than just updating basically your CV?
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the challenge, is how can we do a better job of product marketing for the product and service we already have, and of course, continuing to innovate and continuing to build a roadmap and a pipeline of products that are going to more deeply engage people so they can discover that value. We're in the process right now of rolling out the 2.0 version of company profiles on LinkedIn. And for those that don't know about this, this is a perfect example of how we can do a better job of merchandising this functionality. There's over 1 million active company profiles on LinkedIn. And you can see data on those profiles you cannot get anywhere else by virtue of people updating their profiles. You can see who just joined a company, who just left the company, who's just been promoted to a company, what jobs are available at the company. And by virtue of looking at that data in the aggregate, imagine wanting to research a company, either as a reporter, an investor, someone who wants to work there, and being able to see trends like how many people in R&D they've hired over the last couple of years versus their competition. Where people are flowing from a company, if they're leaving company X, which companies are they going to, and vice versa. And ultimately, you're going to see additional functionality on those pages like products and services. So companies will be able to market B2B products and services, and individuals will be able to follow those companies, say, look, I use an iPhone versus a BlackBerry, here's why. When you come to my profile, you'll see that. You'll see the review I've left. I can recommend that to my friends. And within a professional context, it's just very different functionality than you find anywhere else.
Right. Yeah, you've got all that data to mine. So again, if somebody gets to a certain job position quicker than others, you can tell people how they got to that job position quicker. What was the path they went on? Right?
Yeah.
We got another question.
Thank you. Alexi from Zingai. Now in LinkedIn, users mainly communicate using text messages, or for example, if you need to talk about some business things, you probably will use text messages or emails. Are you going to add some voice functions into LinkedIn to let people know, call you if you got visitors from the same network you are in, something like that?
Yeah, ultimately, it's a great question. So ultimately, we'd like to make it easier for people to connect, communicate, collaborate. That's a big part of making sure that our professional membership can do their jobs more effectively so they can become more successful. Over the last year, we've invested pretty heavily in generating more status updates, which is a form of communication, microcasting, broadcasting. Status updates, by virtue of our Twitter integration and some other things that we've done, are up well over 10x over the last, it's less than 12 months. We've also been improving our inbox functionality, take some of the friction out of processes like accepting invitations, introducing people, etc. And I think in the future, we'll be pursuing some of the things that you were talking about, whether it's instant messaging, telephony. Some of the quality of point-to-point video conferencing is extremely high at this point, and I think functionality that our membership would really appreciate. So definitely exploring some of those options.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Philippe Jody. I'm a French user of your English version. The rumor said that Vialio is coming in Silicon Valley to develop the business, so it's your competitor in this segment. Could you tell a few words about that? And I'd like to know, in the same time, how is your expanding your globalization in terms of language, how you develop out of the English language in the world?
So I'll start with